The Corner Bedroom. Written by Winslow Swan. Audiobook narrated and produced by Edward James Beesley.
Well, wanted to see me, Jerry?
Detective Larry Craven stood in the doorway of the small newspaper office, all 6'3" of him. He was in his 30s, always clean-shaven, auburn hair cut to just above the collar, hazel eyes and a left punch that could knock the heavyweight contender to his knees. He waited to be invited in.
Oh, yeah, Larry, I did. And now I feel a little silly that I called you over.
Jerry Siding said, a slight grin on his face. Jerry was 42, a little overweight, which the six-pack of beers every night did not help, a little grey in his dark hair, which needed to be trimmed. He had become the youngest editor of the small-town newspaper in the past 100 years, and had done a quite admirable job of garnering readership for a town that only held a little over 30,000 people, mostly tourists who came to the mountains on weekend retreats and getaways. Larry liked the man who sat behind the small wooden desk, ever since the two had met at Kelsey's bar about 3 years ago, when Larry was working a homicide case, something that was unheard of in the city of Velvet's Grove, about 200 miles from any crime anywhere. The two men had become good friends, and when Larry broke the case, Jerry had done a full front-page spread that had made Larry a local celebrity. He pulled up a chair and sat opposite the newspaper editor.
So, what's on your mind, Jer?
He asked.
You are gonna think that I have completely gone mental after I tell you this,
Jerry said with a grin.
I'm all ears. Besides, except for a case of bicycle thefts that I am currently working on, there is nothing happening in the department right now that I cannot take a little time out for a friend,
Larry told him, grinning.
Okay, then here goes nothing,
Jerry said, and opened his desk drawer. From within, he took a handful of neatly written pages and laid them on the desk. Larry looked at the stack and glanced up at Jerry.
Do you know where Elmwood Street is?
Jerry asked.
You know I do,
Larry answered.
That was where I arrested William Stallworth in connection with the murder of his wife 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's right,
Jerry said.
And do you remember the number of the house?
I think it was 133 or something like that,
Larry said, only guessing since he had never been very good with numbers.
Again, correct,
Jerry said, and continued.
Something happened there that maybe I should know about? Larry asked.
3 years ago this Saturday, the Saturday before Thanksgiving, according to the coroner's report, William Stallworth murdered his wife and walled her body up. You, my friend, eventually found the body, and the killer was sent to prison.
Yeah, I do remember the details,
Larry said.
What has that got to do with, why you asked me down here?
Jerry sighed and said,
The owner of the newspaper, my boss, wanted me to do a feature article on the house that no one seems to want.
Would you live in it knowing what happened?
Larry asked.
Not me, brother,
Jerry admitted.
Anyway, I thought I would look the place over and try and get a feel for the story, see if the atmosphere had changed any.
What did you find?
Larry asked, now a little more interested. Jerry simply pointed to the stack of papers on his desk.
I got the key from Mary Ulysses over at the real estate agent and decided to go over there this morning to 133 Elmwood Street. Well, the place has been empty for 3 years now, and no one, according to Mary, has even looked at the place once they find out what happened inside.
Oh, yeah. I understand Old Man Chambers won't even buy it. and he buys almost any piece of property,
Larry said.
Huh, owns the building that we're sitting in right now,
Jerry said.
Anyway, as I was walking through the house, I came across the upstairs bedroom where the murder took place. You know the one I'm talking about. The one at the far corner of the house, off the upstairs hallway.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I looked in and found this. Well, I don't know what you would call it. Manuscript, I guess, lying on the floor of the bedroom. I picked it up, brought it back here, and read the thing.
And now you want me to find out who left it there?
Larry asked.
No, Larry,
Jerry said.
It isn't that. Oh, look, I read it, and it just unnerved me.
In what way?
Jerry paused and took a deep breath, saying,
Maybe if I read you the thing, you might understand.
Go ahead,
Larry said, leaning back in his chair and folding his arms over his massive chest.
I'm all ears.
Jerry gathered up the papers and began to read aloud.
I don't know,
Jerry began,
if this will ever reach the right person or persons, but what has become a quiet house on a quiet street in
a quiet little town has now turned into a nightmare that I find myself no escape from. My name is James Gray, and was currently a resident of the city where my company decided to send me on a fact-finding tour of small-town America to isolate a new location for one of our plants. It would mean a large economic boom to whatever town we settled upon, so my intentions were kept secret from everyone. I was only to report my findings about whatever city I happened to be in. The company would make the final decision. So I would rent or lease a house somewhere in the town that I was in for a few weeks and get to know what I could about the population, the history, so on and so on. I drove my car up to a house, a number 133 Elmwood, and saw the sign lying face down in an unkempt lawn. I picked it up and copied the phone number to the real estate agent. She was very happy to hear from me, and we made arrangements for me to look at the house that afternoon. It was the Saturday before Thanksgiving, and the day was not as cold as I thought that it should have been.
All of the utilities are in working order,
the agent told me,
as well as the kitchen appliances. It has 2 stories with a basement. The upper floor has 3 bedrooms and 1 full-size bath with another half-bath downstairs for guests.
She seemed a little too friendly and too exaggerated with her movements, like she was one of those models from a television game show waving her hands over the prizes that could be won. Is there anything wrong? I finally asked her. Her entire body deflated, as if she were dreading the question before I even asked it.
Yes, Mr. Gray, there is something terribly wrong,
she admitted. Let me guess, I said jokingly. A ghastly murder took place here, and a vengeful spirit now resides within these walls. I was only joking, but I could tell by the look that she gave me that I had somehow managed to hit the nail squarely on the head.
Everything but the vengeful ghost part,
she told me.
Now, I do have a smaller house about 3 streets over that I could show you, and it is a very good price.
Well, would you consider renting this place for a month for, say, $2,400? I asked. I don't think that I have ever seen anyone move as fast as she did when I made the offer. Without a word, she had dashed to her car, quite a feat in high heels, had the contract made out, and had me sign it before I could possibly change my mind. With a check in hand that had included an extra $1,000 as a security, she went on her merry way. I waited in the house for a few minutes alone, breathing in the air of fresh paint and cleaning fluid that had been used only a week previous. The agent had told me that the house was given a good cleaning about every other month in the off chance that someone would come along and buy it. I'd gotten very lucky since I did not know the story of the infamous murder that had taken place there a little under 3 years prior. I told her that stories like that did not bother me in the least. My next stop was a local furniture shop that would rent me enough to get by on. I had explained that I would not be in need of an entire house, mostly a living room setup and one-bedroom set. After I told the owner which house I wanted the articles delivered to, he could only stare and shake his head. Another stop at the grocery store to stock up on essential items, and I was on my way to the place that I would call my office. I would not have need for a phone, for my cell phone would suffice, and if I absolutely needed to be entertained, I had my trusty laptop computer and a hard drive of movies and television shows that would take me years to completely watch. The electric had remained on in the real estate agent's name, and according to the contract, I would pay over and above whatever the bill happened to be. After a quick bite to eat, I settled into the easy chair that had been delivered and began to make some notes about the town and the feasibility of opening a plant there. It was close to 3 a.m. that I heard the strange noise coming from upstairs. I snickered at the thought that there just might be a vengeful ghost living, or rather dying, with me somewhere in the upper portion of the house. "You are about 3 hours late," I yelled to the mysterious noise. "I thought ghostly happenings always started just before midnight." The noise is a little hard to describe, not really a scratching sound like the ones a mouse or rat might make, but more of a whirring sound, low and almost inaudible. It was becoming a little irritating, so I decided to investigate. I made my way up the stairs and could hear the noise a little louder now. I had checked out the bedroom that I had laid claim to and, finding nothing, made my way to the other two. One bedroom was directly across from mine. Only an empty room greeted my eyes. The door after that room was on the left, and it was the bathroom. I thought that perhaps there was a problem with the plumbing, but after a short investigation, this was not the case. The last door on the right at the end of the hallway was the third bedroom. As the real estate agent had informed me, it was in this room that the horrible murder took place. The door was closed, but I could distinctly hear the whirring noise coming from inside. I reached out my hand and turned the knob. The door slowly opened to reveal exactly what I intended to find. Nothing. The noise had ceased as soon as the door was opened. The moonlight shone through the 2 windows that were opposite the door. I simply shrugged and turned, walking back to my own bedroom, where I decided to lay down and try to get some sleep. I could only hear the closing of the door to the corner bedroom. The next day, I called the real estate agent and informed her of the noise. I told her that it was probably something to do with the plumbing, and she told me she would get someone out there immediately to check on it. I told her that as long as she had a key, she was more than welcome to go out there and make sure that everything was okay. She agreed, and that was that. It wasn't until the next day, when a detective from the local police force had arrived early in the morning, that I found out something was very wrong with the house. "I am Detective Sanders from the police. Are you Mr. Gray?" "Yes," I answered. "Mind if I come in?" he asked. "Please do," I said, and showed him into the living room. "I'm investigating the disappearance of Mary Ulysses, a real estate agent that I believe rented you this house." "I just talked to her yesterday," I informed him. "Mind telling me what that conversation was about?" he asked. "I told her about a possible plumbing problem that I was having, and if she wouldn't mind checking it out with a plumber. Well, she told me that she would, and that was that," I said. The detective took out a small notebook from his coat pocket and flipped over a few pages.
When did you move in, Mr. Gray?
He asked. Just a couple of days ago, I said. What has happened?
The detective sat back a little and smiled.
Perhaps you can tell me,
he said. The feeling that you get when someone asks you something that you have no answer to, but they are sure that you do, is quite unsettling. The back of my neck froze, with icy fingers lightly touching the hairline, bringing a chill to my spine.
Well, all that I can tell you is that I talked to her on the phone yesterday. I had a meeting in the next county over with a developer, and it lasted until around 8 that evening.
I volunteered the information.
It's kind of late for a meeting, wouldn't you say?
He asked.
Not in my kind of business, I told him.
Exactly what kind of business are you in, Mr. Gray?
I do feasibility studies for my company for different parts of the country,
I offered, but I got the impression that he did not believe me.
Can anyone vouch for your whereabouts yesterday?
He asked.
Do they need to? Am I being accused of something?
I finally asked. At that point, he deflated. He had been trying to play both the good and the bad cop, and now it was as if he just wanted to talk.
Would you like some coffee? I asked.
Please. And I apologize if I came across a little forceful. It has been one of those days,
he said. I made the coffee and we talked of generalities, about the town, the people that lived there, the lack of industry, and how the town had been holding up. After I poured 2 cups, we again sat in the living room.
Now, what exactly is this about? I asked.
He took a sip of coffee and smiled.
You wouldn't believe it. Hell, I don't believe it. But it was what I was told,
he began. He took another sip of coffee, and by the expression on his face, I could tell that he had wished it had been something stronger.
You're right, the detective began, about Miss Eulidy's coming out here. We traced her movements to the plumber that she called and who met her out here to look over the place. He's a local guy that pretty much everyone uses. He's good at what he does, and he doesn't charge an arm and a leg for the work, so his word is pretty good.
But you were having some doubts? I asked.
The detective's face changed slightly as he searched for the right words.
According to him, the 2 of them entered the house, and he went to the kitchen, presumably to check the pipes. He then checked the bathroom downstairs, and then the pair made their way upstairs. Finding nothing in the upstairs bathroom, they were just about to leave when they heard.
He stopped, trying to find a way to describe the noise.
Let me guess, I offered. A sort of high-pitched whirring sound coming from the last bedroom.
That was it exactly, he said. He told Miss Eulidy's that he had never heard anything like it, and she agreed. They both walked towards the bedroom. The sound seemed to get louder as they approached the closed door, and when they opened it,
the sound stopped.
I finished the sentence for him, and the chill that had started in my neck was now creeping down my spine.
Now, you would think that would be the end of the story, but it wasn't,
Detective Sanders said, and for the first time, I thought that I could hear the quiver of fear in his voice.
What did the plumber say happened?
I asked, almost in a whisper.
He claimed, and I have no reason to doubt either his word or his sanity, the Mary Eulidy's stepped into the room, walked about halfway across, when the door slammed shut. He tried to open it, but couldn't. He then said that the whirring began again, only much louder and lower in pitch. He heard Mary say, "Oh, dear God, help me." He said that there was a brilliant white light shining from under the door. Mary screamed once, and then everything went silent. The door then opened by itself. He looked inside, but the room was empty. He ran outside and then came to me.
I thought for a moment, and then asked, "So, what are you thinking?"
I'm thinking that maybe I should take a look inside that bedroom.
We made our way upstairs, hearing nothing except the sounds of our own footsteps. When we got to the bedroom, the door was open. The morning light was coming in from the windows inside the room. There was nothing inside. When the detective began to make a move to step inside the room, I stopped him. "Do you think that's wise?" I asked.
It's just a bedroom, Mr. Gray, built with ordinary brick and wood. What could happen in an empty room?"
he asked, not believing his very own words. He looked inside the room, reached in, and closed the door. He then looked at me, smiled, and said,
"I don't think that a bedroom ate the woman."
Later that afternoon, Detective Sanders and another detective named Haskell came to the house. I fixed all of us a few sandwiches, and we went over the story again. Mary Eulides had not been seen or heard from since coming into the house only 24 hours ago.
Technically, she is not considered missing until 48 hours have gone by,
Detective Haskell said. "So, what do you think happened?" I asked.
Personally,
Haskell began between bites of his sandwich,
I think that the plumber killed her and buried her somewhere.
"Now, wait a second," Sanders said. "I have known Joe Collins for most of my life. He isn't that type of person."
Neither was Jeffrey Dahmer,
Haskell said, leaving the room silent. The afternoon slowly changed into the evening. It was close to 8 o'clock when we all decided that perhaps the noise, whatever it might have been, was gone. Mary Eulides had suddenly decided that small-town life was just not for her, and we should all go down to Kelsey's bar and get completely blind drunk. The whirring sound made its presence known just as the three of us stood up to leave. We all looked at each other, not wanting to move for fear that the sound would stop and we would not have time to investigate.
"Let's go,"
Haskell said. Sanders and I followed him up the stairs. The door to the bedroom was closed, but the sound was definitely coming from that room. As we approached it, the door slowly began to open on its own, as if it were inviting us to come in and discover the secret of the whirring noise. Haskell withdrew his gun from the shoulder holster and pointed it directly down the hallway.
"What in the hell are you going to shoot?"
Sanders asked. Haskell felt a little silly and put the gun away. We stood just outside the doorframe, Haskell in the middle, Sanders to his left, and me on the right. We strained to see into the room since nightfall had already occurred, so there was no light coming into the windows this time. The noise was distinctively louder as we stood, adjusting our eyes to the darkness.
"What the hell is that?"
Sanders asked, pointing into the darkened room. I looked towards the part of the ceiling that Sanders was pointing at and saw what I could only describe as a boiling cloud of darkness, a deeper dark than the surrounding darkness. I could hear the whirring getting louder and louder.
"Holy shit!"
Haskell said, and stepped into the bedroom. What happened next is hard to tell since it all happened so damn fast. All I could tell you was that Detective Haskell was pulled into the room violently by some unseen hand or force, and the door slammed shut. Sanders and I pounded on the door, yelling over the terrifying noise that was coming from within. We jumped back when we heard the gun fire several times from within the room. Again, we tried to open the door and became more forceful when we heard the high-pitched scream of a human in complete agony.
For God's sake, help me!
Haskell yelled. At this point, Sanders removed his gun and fired it directly into the door handle. 2 more shots and a kick, and the door flew open. There was nothing. No sound or light. No boiling black cloud. And most importantly, there was no trace of Detective Haskell. Even his gun had vanished. The 2 of us went back downstairs. After a very stiff drink, Sanders called the chief, and my rented house was a mass of police and firefighters as well as rescue units. The detective and I were sitting in the living room when the captain came from downstairs.
How many shots were fired?
He asked. 2, I think, before I kicked the door in, Sanders answered. The captain looked at me and asked,
And you were a witness, Mr. Gray?
There was something about the way that he had asked me that unnerved me, but I answered that yes, I had seen the gun go off, the bullets blow away the better part of the door, and Sanders' size 11 shoe finish off whatever was left of the door. It was now close to midnight, and my sarcastic inner self was coming out to play.
Perhaps you had both better come upstairs,
the captain said, and escorted us. As we walked down the hallway, we saw the impossible. The door to the bedroom was completely solid, closed, just as it had been. The captain walked past us, opened the door, walked into the bedroom, spun around as if to show us that there was no boogeyman or anything else within the room. Then he walked out, closed the door, and faced us.
Would you like to tell me what happened?
He asked. It was almost 3 a.m. when Detective Sanders came back to the house. I was still awake, trying to figure out exactly what had occurred on this strange night. I invited him in and offered him another stiff drink.
You do know what happened here about 3 years ago?
He asked. Do you think that William Stalwart's wife has something to do with this? I asked. I told him that I had heard all of the details and had looked up some myself.
Maybe the fact that you rented this place on the 3rd anniversary of her death would explain.
He stopped himself, realizing how impossible that sounded. I don't believe in ghosts, I told him.
Neither do I,
he agreed.
Yet there is something evil in this house. Spirit or alien, but there is something. 2 people are gone, vanished without a trace, and both were in that bedroom.
So was the captain. But nothing happened to him, did it? I asked.
Well, that is what has got me puzzled,
Sanders said. Well, the door reconstructing itself is a definite puzzler, I added. The whirring began again. We both ran up the stairs, taking several at a time. We stopped midway down the hall, staring in disbelief at the sight before our eyes. The door was open, and the dark cloud was beginning to boil out of the room, creeping along the hall, hissing and whirring louder and louder. I could feel the intensity of the evil that permeated from the black mass of what could only be described as smoke. The blackness was darker than anything that I had ever encountered and seemed to swallow the light around it. Sanders was standing just ahead of me. I watched him fumble for his gun, but his hand was having trouble grabbing it from his holster. I watched him aim at the mass and fire several shots, none of which had any effect. He turned and faced me, only mouthing the words, "Run, run, run!" His face became ashen gray as I looked at him in puzzlement. I watched the black smoke creep along his arms and neck. He was frozen with fear, and there was nothing that I could do. He screamed only once as his body was whipped backwards down the hallway, never touching the floor, and into the bedroom. The door slammed shut, and everything was silent again. It is now morning, only 3 days before Thanksgiving. I have gone over these notes a half a dozen times and can only tell you that this is as accurate as I can get. The house and whatever is inside, to use Santa's words, be it spirit or alien, should be burned to the ground and never used again. This is the only suggestion that I have. I will leave this bundle of pages in the bedroom where I believe the evil began. How you get them out is up to you, and I surely hope that you do. I think that the blackness only happens at certain times, but whatever those times are is something that I have yet to discover and probably never will. So here I will wait until night comes. I will then wait to hear the mysterious whirring noise. I have a plan to perhaps destroy the thing that has invaded our world. I saw a construction shed that had dynamite inside. I will grab a couple of sticks and make my way to the bedroom where, when the darkness comes, I shall set it off. The majority of the house will probably blow up with it, but at least I will not have to experience the terror that the others had to endure.
May God have mercy.
Jerry finished reading and laid the bundle of papers back onto his desk and looked up at his friend.
So,
Jerry asked,
what do you think?
It is one heck of a story, Jerry.
Larry agreed.
But nothing like that has ever happened, if that is what you're worried about.
I'm not finished.
Jerry said.
Attached to the papers where I found them was a newspaper clipping, not a large story, but it does say that an explosion at 133 Elmwood Street occurred in the early morning hours of November 22nd, just 3 days before Thanksgiving, taking the life of its present occupant, Mr. James Gray, a businessman who had just rented the place, and possibly Detective Sanders of the local police. Also missing are Sanders' partner, Detective Haskell, and the real estate agent who had rented the house to Mr. Gray and went missing 2 days prior.
Jerry, what do you want me to do?
Larry finally asked.
Well, don't you see?
Jerry asked, a little agitated.
It all fits. The number of the house, the murders that had taken place there. I just have this bad feeling.
Coincidence, Jerry. Nothing more.
Larry assured him.
The newspaper clipping, well, that you could have printed up somewhere. 10 to 1, you were going to find that the guy lived somewhere close and he wrote that thing and misplaced it.
I guess you're right.
Jerry finally admitted.
Not that I don't think that it's a good yarn,
Larry said. The two men were just ready to say goodbye when the phone rang.
Hello?
Jerry answered.
Jerry, it's Mary over at the real estate office. You are never going to believe this, but I just got a phone call from someone that wants to rent that old place on Elmwood Street.
Jerry's face went white as he gripped the phone tighter.
Jerry? Are you still there? Listen, I need the key to the place if you're done with it. I'm just wondering how the hell I'm going to skirt around the murder. Oh, don't want to scare off a potential buyer.
Mary?
Jerry said.
Did the person give you his name?
Yeah, he did. I have it written down here. Mr. James Gray. Why? Do you know him?
Jerry had waved Larry to come over and listen to the conversation. At the name that Mary had given, the two men looked at each other and then looked down at the pile of papers, the story that lay on Jerry's desk.
Mary, I think you need to stop by my office.
Jerry said.
I have something that you really need to read.
Epilogue. The butler did it.
If you'd like to support us, visit our merchandise store. T-shirts, caps, mugs, and so much more. Visit doorwaytonightmare.com today.
Chills run up and down your spine. There's a creeping sensation at the back of your neck. You're listening to Doorway to Nightmare. Join me, Artemis Black, as we venture through into a world of the strange and uncanny. Here's a sample of what we mean.
But don't you hear her? She must be somewhere nearby.
Henry, there is no child anywhere around. Please come inside.
Little girl, show yourself. It's all right. We don't want to hurt you. Are you telling me, Ruth, that you don't hear her?
No, Henry, I don't. Because there is no child.
Video versions Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Join us. We will be lurking for you.
Have you heard any good books lately? Audiobooks from Winslow Swan, now available on Spotify.
Hey guys, this is Crimson.
And this is Swan. And we'd love to know what you think of the stories.
Even if it's bad.
So leave us a comment.
Or give us a thumbs up.
Thank you.